Welcome back to Practical Parenting, the podcast that helps empower parents in the trenches, find joy in the process, and thrive through it all. I'm Christina Wales, here with my co-host, Dr. Terry Nguyen, Chair of Pediatrics at GBMC Healthcare. So, Dr. Nguyen, you've been interviewed on this subject before. Recently did a webinar with the Baltimore Banner on the pneumonia cases that we're seeing. We're seeing them, we're still seeing them within the state of Maryland and Baltimore, but also nationally, this rise in pneumonia. So talk to us about where that's coming from and sort of the origins of why it's elevated more than usual.
Yep. So it's walking pneumonia or atypical pneumonia, and it's being caused by a bacteria called Mycoplasma pneumoniae. And this is kind of a mild illness, honestly, and that's why sometimes they call it walking pneumonia, okay? It means that you're coughing. Maybe you have a fever, maybe not, but you can function pretty well, during the day. But this cough just won't go away. And you may have fevers. And so what's different now is that with mycoplasma, it usually comes in cycles.
Okay.
And it's 3 to 7 year cycles that we hit, peaks and then we go down. We have not had mycoplasma pneumonia peak since before COVID. So that would bring us all the way back to the winter of 2019 turning into 2020. Okay. So we're now about 5 years out. So we probably missed a cycle because of COVID. Okay. And now it's hit. I think of this as similar to the triple-demic we had of RSV, flu, and COVID in 2022, right? Like there was not much RSV or flu during the peak of the COVID pandemic. And so there wasn't much mycoplasma pneumonia during the pandemic as well, and now it's rearing its head. And the other weird thing about it is that this illness is striking younger children. Typically, mycoplasma pneumonia, atypical walking pneumonia, is caused, usually the children who are affected are school age and older children.
Okay.
But the difference this year, is that it's affecting younger children in the 2 to 4 age group. No one really knows why, but I have an idea that they've never been exposed to it, right? So they're even more susceptible when they get exposed, okay? And again, the children in this age group, the 2 to 4, many of them were born during COVID. So their immune systems are quite different because their exposure to germs and bacteria were also limited and restricted, right? So I'm wondering, this is just my hypothesis, that this may be the reason, because it certainly was my hypothesis for the triple-demic, and I think the scientists are thinking along the same way. So this is a limited disease where 50% of the times it will go away on its own. So I don't want people to listen to our podcast and go, oh my God, my child is coughing. I need to go call my doctor. No, if your child's been coughing for 2 or 3 days, your child's been coughing for 2 or 3 days. If your child's been coughing for over 2 weeks and they still are coughing and can't get rid of it, reach out to your doctor, okay? If they're coughing and they have a fever and the fever's been longer than 5 days, yes, please contact your doctor. Or if they're struggling to breathe, I don't care how long they've been coughing, if they're flaring their nostrils, pulling in their throat, and, their ribs are going in and out. Or for much younger children, infants and toddlers, if they can't sleep and they're sitting bolt right up to breathe, they're using all of their energy to breathe. They are struggling with breathing. They need to be seen, okay? But otherwise, my child has been coughing for 5 days. I'm like, yep, it can be a virus. It can even be atypical pneumonia, but we're not going to do anything about it yet, okay? So remember, atypical pneumonia, it's on the rise. It's been on the rise since August in the Maryland, Baltimore area, and that's what we've seen nationally. And it's still on the uptick. It's not slowing down, okay? But not a need to panic, because you get to treatment when you need to, and 50% of the cases will self-resolve, okay? The difference with this pneumonia is that how you might distinguish this is that usually just a common cold, you'll have coughing, runny nose, and congestion. There's really not much congestion or runny nose with walking pneumonia, okay? There may or may not be a fever. Yeah, so it's like, oh, my child's going to school, but, they're coughing all night. That's the difference. So you want to look for changes in your child's behavior to gauge how sick or not sick they are.
Okay.
Chest x-rays. Some people will ask me, so do I need to do chest x-rays? No, actually, clinical findings, what we as the doctors hear on physical exam is ahead of the chest x-ray findings. Okay, so your doctor can make a diagnosis of pneumonia without ever doing a chest x-ray. Okay, we do a chest x-ray when we hear something weird on the lungs, or we hear decreased breath sounds on one side. So we want to know if there's a localization or a focal point for that pneumonia. And that's usually the community-acquired pneumonias that we see. And that's usually caused by a strep species, or it's not mycoplasma. Mycoplasma doesn't usually have a focal concentration, but in this with the mycoplasma that we're seeing right now, we are seeing some kids with focal infiltrates. It's affecting a specific part of their lungs. Now, is that mycoplasma with a community-acquired pneumonia? Hard for me to imagine that there's two pathogens going on, two germs going on at the same time. But, we can alter our antibiotic treatment of that child to cover for both, okay?
Okay.
So, the community-acquired pneumonias we would give amoxicillin for. Mycoplasma, we would give azithromycin, okay? But if we're wondering which one we're dealing with, mycoplasma or strep, pneumonia, treat with doxycycline. But this is more information than you actually need. Your doctor will take care of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's good to know. And then we've also seen an uptick in pertussis, or the whooping cough. And so since they're both respiratory, and then, like, as you mentioned, we did go through the triple-demic spike last year, but we're also still seeing flu, COVID, and RSV this year, in addition to this uptick in pneumonia and now this pertussis. So I think you mentioned a little bit about the difference between each one, or, how serious we need to take it, but let's walk through that a little bit more.
Okay. So I'll start with RSV and flu and COVID, so that you know where everything is right now. So we know for sure that mycoplasma walking pneumonia cases are still going up. COVID cases have been steady, and they're low. Okay, there's not a lot of it, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get your COVID vaccine. You should still get your COVID vaccine, okay? And RSV is on the upswing, okay?
Okay.
And RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, it really has its biggest effects on infants and children, under a year of age. It's a virus, okay? So we can't do very much. But this year, as of last year, we have an immune globulin that we can give to babies up to 9 months of age during RSV season, which is October through March, okay? And it's called Nursivimab or Beyfortus, okay? And your baby can receive that as they're leaving the nursery after being born, or at your pediatrician's office within a week of them being born, okay? And on top of that, if you're a pregnant mother and you are 32 to 36 weeks in your pregnancy, you can get a vaccine for RSV that will protect your infant, okay? And then they won't need the immune globulin after they're born. So if you're a pregnant lady right now, in 32 to 36 weeks of pregnancy, please go out and get your RSV vaccine. And as long as you get it 2 weeks before you deliver your baby's covered. Your baby doesn't need anything, okay? So that's how we can decrease the RSV cases. Because RSV and the rest of us is a cold, okay? But with younger babies, and the smaller they are, the less lung reserve they have. So if you get hit with a germ early on, especially the kids under 6 months, Yeah, there's a good chance you may end up in the hospital because you're not going to be able to oxygenate as well. And here's the thing with RSV. Those kids are coughing, and it's a very classic cough. It's like the cough that keeps going, and their nose is running like no tomorrow, okay? They're just like a running faucet, okay? So if your baby is doing that, but they're eating, they're drinking, they're playing, and they're not struggling to breathe, don't go to the doctor. There's nothing we're going to do. But if your baby has all of that and is struggling to breathe, and can't sleep, can't eat, is not peeing the way they normally do, yeah, please go see your doctor, right? So that's RSV. It's on the climb. And, this is happening the way it normally, we're starting to see a little bit more of life in germs anyways, okay, and infections of what it was before COVID. Okay, so usually RSV comes first in the season, and then flu comes in after it, okay? So we have not seen an increase in flu cases at all. It's still very low activity, okay? But this is a great time for you to get the flu vaccine because it takes 2 weeks before you have antibodies for the flu.
And just for frame of reference, we're recording mid-October, or mid-November, mid-November.
Yes. So we aim to get everybody vaccinated by November because flu season often starts in November, December, okay?
Okay.
And so this year, for the first time, the doctors were like, we're getting kind of weirdly back to life as it was before COVID, where RSV comes into play first in October-ish, and then, starting in November to December, flu cases start coming in. And both of these diseases usually peak within 4 to 6 weeks. Okay, but how long the peak lasts is variable, okay, and then it starts going down. But sometimes there's a longer tail, okay. This past year, flu and RSV went well into springtime, okay. So please, as we're approaching holidays, Thanksgiving, all the December holidays and the New Year's, please get your children vaccinated, okay? It takes 2 weeks to build antibodies. So we talked about that. Oh, pertussis. That was really your original question.
Yeah.
So pertussis, we start vaccinating children when they're 2 months old. So they get their core vaccinations for pertussis in infancy, and there's 4 doses involved, okay? The last one happens, after they're a year of age. And then they get boosters at 4 years of age and at 11 years of age, okay? And if you're one of my patients, because you're with me until you're like 22 or later, I'm giving you another booster for the pertussis vaccine at 21. Because I actually know that oftentimes you leave the pediatrician and you never see another doctor until you're about to have children. And it's male and female, all right? The females, they'll see the GYN, but they won't see a primary care. And for the guys, really, it's like when they're like, oh, I got to get life insurance. Oh, I can't get a policy without a doctor's clearance, okay? So we're making a comeback with pertussis because there are segments of different communities where the immunization rate isn't as high as it had been. Because if you have a 95% or better immunization rate within your community, you get herd immunity. So even if you're not vaccinated, you will have herd immunity from the community. That's really not the case in Maryland, okay? But there are many states out there where the vaccination rate for children entering kindergarten is definitely below 95%. And for some of those states, it can be as low as 90 to 93%. That's alarming because there's no herd immunity in those communities. And that's where you're going to see the pertussis outbreaks. That's where you're going to see the measles outbreaks, okay? And God knows what else we might see in the future.
Right.
So pertussis, it's whooping cough. It is a very distinct cough, okay? And it's spreading also because some people's immunity have worn down from it. Remember, I said that you should get boosted for it about every 10 years, but there's this dead zone for most people after they leave their pediatrician until they have children. And then, for grandparents, they're really far out, and there's a good chance they haven't gotten it either. So that's what's reintroducing the pertussis bacteria into the community. Okay, people whose immunity has worn off as well, right? So I think, in Maryland, it'll be people's immunities have worn off. In other communities, it may be that the vaccination rate
Just too low.
It is too low. So why is this important? If you're expecting a baby, please go get your pertussis booster. You and your partner, and then the grandparents and any aunts or uncles or close friends and family that are going to be around the baby, because there's a good chance those folks are not up to date on their pertussis booster. So with adults, we have this it's a whooping cough. In infants, okay, they forget to breathe. They don't have a cough. Infants just hold their breath, forget to breathe. Yeah. So that's how they and I've seen it in residency. So it's a scary bug for babies. And remember, they don't get their first shot until they're 2 months of age. So for the first 2 months, they have no protection. Yeah. So if you have a young infant, definitely under 2 months of age, please, during the holidays, if they haven't even started vaccinations, limit their exposure to big crowds of people. I'm thinking, since for us, it's Thanksgiving is right around the corner, I would have a small family Thanksgiving. I would not expose my baby to, the huge extended family, because God knows what everybody is carrying around. And remember, things that cause mild disease in older people, adults, or even older children, cause really havoc in our young babies.
Awesome. Well, not awesome, but we know the information. That part is awesome. Okay. So everybody get prepared for the holiday season and wash your hands.
Oh, yes. Wash your hands.
Cover your mouth when you cough.
Cough into your elbow, please. And if you're doing more coughing than anything else, keep your child from away from school and away from big gatherings, okay?
Yeah. That's one thing I'll say real quick before we wrap up is that I'll shout out my kids' school. If any of the kids in the class are coughing, they will put a mask on them and say they have to wear a mask for the rest of the day. And then, the teachers are in constant communication with us. So, there was a stomach bug that went around one of my kids' class, and they texted everybody and said, just wash your backpacks and your lunch boxes when you get home, and I'm going to clean the classroom. And I told the teacher at pickup, I said, that's information that I wish I didn't know, but I'm glad that I know it.
Yeah.
Because, I spent the entire long weekend concerned about, watching out for stomach bug signs. But, in the end, it was good to have that information and to be able to do my part to take care of my kids and the classroom in general. So, if you don't already do that at your kids' school or gatherings, just talk to the teacher and see if other parents are interested in getting, some shared values around how they want to approach illness in the classroom, because I think it can be really beneficial for everybody to just, take care of each other.
Absolutely. And I love it. Hand hygiene is so key. And remind the kids to sing the ABCs from A to Z, not ABC and then be done. So hand hygiene is so important. And covering your mouth when you're coughing or sneezing.
Yeah.
And then, if you're in public and you're coughing or sneezing, wear a mask. I have no statements about that. We just know from the pandemic that it really does reduce exposure, droplet exposure to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. See you in the next one.
All right. Thanks.